So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Super Ops webinar this afternoon, all around lifting the lid on MSP marketing. We're just waiting for a couple of guys to turn up and to start to fill the room up. So while you are all just joining in, why don't you tell me where in the world you are? Just drop in the comments or drop in the chat box whereabouts you are in the world. And if you want to wind us up in the UK, you can also tell us what the weather's like as well. If you're elsewhere, I've just been talking to someone in Arizona where it sounds absolutely gorgeous. So we're just going to be getting started in a couple of minutes. So feel free to just drop a message in the chat box. Say hi, where you're from. And thank you very much. Chat is disabled, I've just been told. Serum, if we can enable chat, that would be great. It's just yes, Paul, you're absolutely right. It's we should be just opening up the chat box there. Have you got that? Paul's on there. Only hosts can see that. Right. Okay. Let's see. Yes. How can we do that? How did we do this last time?
Yep. So yeah, I'm just enabling the option. Let me just
Okay. All right. We'll just hang around a couple of minutes. Paul's just outside Milton Keynes, and it's wet. Yes, for some reason in the southern part of the UK, the heavens have just literally opened up. So we're just waiting for another one of our hosts to turn up, Ben. Are you there, Paul? Are you going to come on and say hello this afternoon, Mr. Green?
Hello.
There you go. Hello. How are you?
Hi. I was being professional and waiting to be fully introduced.
Were you really? I could have introduced you in a much different way. You guys are in for a real treat this afternoon. Wow. Carrie, it's snowing. Okay. We'll stop moaning about the rain then. If you have snow, I could have done we'll do some introductions in a minute, Paul. Just waiting for a couple more minutes, just for a couple more people to join up. So if you want to drop into the chat or the Q&A box there, where are you? Hello, and what's the weather like? Then that'll be fantastic. So
looking for the chat.
Okay. Right. I think what we're going to do is we are going to get cracking because time is on and we are cautious of people's time. We're hoping to be joined by Ben Walkley this afternoon, who's an MSP in the UK, about marketing. But what we're going to do today is we are going to have Paul and I are going to have a bit of a discussion around MSP marketing, because the purpose of the webinars that we've put together, there's 3 in this series. The first one was a couple of weeks ago, all around strategy and all around growth that I did with Stuart Warwick, my business partner. This one was around marketing. So what we want to do is we really want to lift the lid on marketing and stop dancing around the issue about the marketing and talk about what people are actually doing, the activities that people are doing to get success. And there's no other person better than Paul. I'll give you the introduction. You don't have to nod yet. I haven't introduced you yet. No better person to talk to in the UK than Paul about this. And then we've got Ben. Hopefully we're going to be joined by Ben in a little while, who is an MSP who's had some great marketing success. And we're going to just say, look, Ben, what is it that you're doing? So, Paul, do you just want to introduce yourself onto the show?
Yeah, happily. Fantastic. Thank you very much. My name's Paul Green. I'm Ian Luckett's warm-up act. So I'm here to make Ian look good, which is quite a
But you haven't got a Super Ops t-shirt that I got from Comptia.
I haven't got a Super Ops t-shirt, which I will be talking to management about. So they've got my address. But no, so thank you for having me on. So I am an MSP marketing expert. I run a program called the MSP Marketing Edge. We work with 700 MSPs all over the world. In fact, we have more members in the US now than we do in the UK. And we supply white label marketing content and tons of support, much of it one-to-one, to help you get your marketing done. So literally my entire life consists of, in this order, MSP marketing, my daughter, Doctor Who, and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So as you can see, the most important thing is there at the front, which is MSP marketing. My daughter is at school, so she can't she can't hear me say that marketing is more important to her. We have a ton of, as well as our free resource, we have, our paid resource, we have a ton of free stuff as well, including, let me tease this is a bit of a Super Ops exclusive. We have here the brand new MSP Marketing magazine, and we don't even sell this. We give this away for free. So if you're based in the the UK or the US, if you go to my website, I'll give you the address in a second, and you can request a free copy of this and we'll post it to you. It's an 8-page magazine all about marketing. It's got case studies from MSPs. It's got practical advice. You go on to Paul Green's MSPmarketing.com. That's Paul Green's MSPmarketing.com. Go into the Learning Hub, or actually, I think you can go to /magazine, and that will take you straight to it, and do request a free copy of that. That would be cool. But yeah, so I love MSP marketing. I literally, and I'm kind of only half joking when I say it's the most exciting thing. I mean, you and I, Ian, have sat and talked for hours about marketing, haven't we? And what's really good about being on this is this event with you is that we're not going to talk today about, sort of stuff that you can read on Google. We're not going to talk about, oh, you could do this, you could do that. We're going to just drill down to what is working for MSPs right now. Where are we? The 8th of November, 2022. There is absolutely a bunch of stuff that works and a bunch of stuff that doesn't work right now. And I know that's what you want to drill into today, Ian.
Exactly. So I was going to say nice intro, Paul, but instead I'm just going to say nice pitch. And
always be closing. ABCs, the first sales lesson there. Always be closing.
Yeah, excellent. And you're right to hand putting the link there into those great. No, Paul's not only is he a great giggler and a great authority on the marketing. So anything he gives away, I would take it. Because he doesn't give much away. He gives loads away. Anyway, look, let's cut to the chase. So we've had the pandemic. We've had we're now going into another bit of turmoil, which is going to be a little bit different for MSPs because largely MSPs, as we saw, had not apart from the health side of things, a pretty good time during the pandemic. Technology was overtook the internet and working from home and all this great stuff. But now we're going into a bit of a tricky period because now we're getting into the point of where everybody's potentially going to be affected by increasing costs and all this other stuff, which means your employees could be affected in their homes and their families and lots of other things. And Stuart and I talk a lot about being self-aware as leaders, which is one thing, but how I'm just going to hit straight off, Paul. We've got the fundamentals of the MSP marketing, but why and how is the landscape going to be different now in the next couple of years and in business for MSPs, and what do they need to maybe do differently to adjust their activity to come out of this recession on top?
Yeah, no. So it's a really good question, and you talk about COVID. Let's go back 2.5 years to when COVID first hit, and I remember being on a group call with about 40 MSPs I was working really closely with, and they were absolutely terrified because after that initial rush to work, rush to work from home, everything went quiet, didn't it? And the support calls dropped, and a lot of the MSPs thought that was the end of their business. Now, as we now know, looking back, COVID was awesome, not for everyone. There are always winners and losers in any situation, but the vast majority of MSPs did okay or even did well during COVID. Now, here's my prediction for next year, because we can look at the economy here in the UK is screwed. We were on our 15th Prime Minister of the week. Interest rates are at like 75%. Inflation's at $1 billion. And that's just the UK. I mean, you look at the US where we're in the midterms right now. We've got Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up, but world over, we're starting to not just feel the pinch. Things are looking bleak, and I have positive news. I know I'm painting a bad picture here. I have positive news to come, but we have got the post-COVID hangover. We've got to admit our government spent so much money, all of them. They need to get that money back. We're seeing interest rates go up. The cost of living is going up. Gas prices, or petrol prices, as we call them in the UK, everything's going up. And it would be very easy for you as an MSP owner to read the news, to look and listen to the general doom and gloom that's around there, and to think, oh my goodness, I'm going to have an appalling 2023. Yeah. Here is the reality. There are many MSPs where next year is going to be their best year ever. And then they're going to top it in 2024, and they're going to top it again in 2025. And there will also be some MSPs who have an appalling year next year, and an even worse year in 24, and they won't be around in 25. Now, what's the difference between those that are going to do well and those that aren't going to do well? It all comes down Well, it comes down to lots of things, but for the context of this call, it comes down to this. The ones that do well are going to take consistent and persistent action in implementing marketing. So they're not just going to talk about it. They're not just going to come onto webinars like this. They're not going to get great advice. They're going to actually get down and do marketing. And certainly, if I look back at the MSPs, and I'm still in touch with many of the MSPs that I was directly helping back during when COVID was we were right in the middle of the lockdowns. Yeah. The ones that took that opportunity to put in place marketing systems. So things happened in their business daily, weekly, and monthly. Well, they've kept those same systems. They've tweaked them, they've updated them, but ultimately there are people, whether they're outsourced people or people within their business, people doing marketing day in, day out. And a lot of those MSPs now have such phenomenal momentum that you couldn't stop them if you tried to. And there are a number. In fact, just last week, I have a peer group. Everyone has peer groups. And I was sat in a peer group of MSPs. And I was talking to one particular guy, John, and John sort of, when I first met him 4 years ago, it was essentially just John and a bit of help. And then over a number of years, and he accelerated this through COVID, he's turned that into a proper business. And he's now at the point where he's almost slightly bored with his business because there's nothing broken. There's nothing to fix. So he's always out looking for more clients, of course, and his marketing system delivers good leads to him. But what he's done is he's put in place, he's systemized his marketing and he's systemized the rest of his business. Well, can you imagine the position he's going to be in for 2023? Because if there are other MSPs going, I'm going to have to pull back on my marketing. I don't want to do too much of that marketing stuff. John's in an absolutely perfect position where he's just carrying on day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out, doing marketing activity. So at the point that, because there's going to be plenty of business next year. In fact, a bad economy is almost as exciting as a good economy because it's change. And if there's one thing that we know about the technology landscape, it's that change drives demand. There's going to be huge amounts of change next year. There's going to be bigger businesses shrinking their IT down, and they'll leave their big expensive MSP and bring their 50 users down to your MSP. Well, for you, 50 users is rubbing your thighs, for the MSP that they left that has a minimum of 100, they're not really interested. So there's going to be winners, there's going to be losers in business, but there's going to be lots and lots and lots of business around. And I genuinely think 2023 is going to be such an exciting year.
I agree with you, Paul, and I think a lot of it's around your mindset as well. And it's the same with with our clients at the Growth Hub. There, if you think you can, you think you can't, you're actually right. It depends what you think, what you're going to work on. So look, I want to get into some of the nitty gritty. I know you talk about consistency, and we get people sort of say, "Oh, I saw you on LinkedIn." There's a reason that they saw us on LinkedIn was because we were on LinkedIn. And if you're not on LinkedIn, or you're not in a networking meeting, or you're not, you haven't got that strategy and that system out there, people aren't going to notice you. You need to set that catch out so that you can set your stall out. And we've obviously got different levels of funnel activity. But if we take a typical MSP, Paul, I was talking to one this morning, and he's established in his niche in terms of his expertise because he's been known to be a technical expert in this particular niche right now, but he's never done any marketing. It's all been referral led. What's the 1, 2, or 3 things that he's got to do to start marketing consistently? Is it write a blog? Is it to go and meet a load of people? What's the thing he has to do today to kickstart his marketing?
Great question, and probably the most common question I'm asked. And I know, I give long answers, Ian, but I do that because I want to make sure people get the most value from it. So exactly. Flag up warning, this is a 5-minute answer. So the first of all, getting your new business from referrals only is more common than you'd think. I would estimate 70 to 80% of MSPs, is their marketing. That's their marketing strategy. Now, there's nothing wrong with referrals. In fact, if we could get you 20 times more referrals than you get now, you wouldn't need to be doing this LinkedIn nonsense, this email marketing, all of this kind of nonsense. But the reality is referrals are few and far between, because when someone refers a friend or a contact to you, there is an inherent social risk in this. If you go and read a book called Unstoppable Referrals by Steve Gordon, he explains that very, very well. That, if I say, oh, go and use that Ian Luckett at MSP Growth Hub, he's great. And then my friend comes and talks to you, and actually it's not such a great experience for them. The social risk is back on me.
Right.
Obviously that would never happen with you, Ian, but you get the idea.
Thank you very much.
Referrals should be one of your strands of marketing. What I recommend is, rather than for the other strands of marketing, rather than just jumping into tactical stuff, I see people say, oh, you should just do LinkedIn, or you should just do blogs, or you should do this. Yeah. Those kind of tactics without a strategy behind them are kind of pointless. Let me tell you the 3-step marketing strategy that works the best for any MSP in any geographical part of the world. And I'll tell you what the strategy is, and then just quickly go back and put some meat on the bone. The 3-step strategy is this. Number 1 is you build multiple audiences of people to listen to you. Number 2 is you build a relationship with those audiences. And number 3, you then commercialize that relationship. Now, the reason that we have that strategy in there is, if we would go back a step, what stops someone just picking your MSP tomorrow is, there's a number of different reasons. In fact, most MSPs have these huge numbers of problems around their marketing. They find that the sales cycle is very, very slow. They find that there's just not a lot of prospects available today. They find that, everything just seems to take so long, and it's so difficult to persuade someone to pick you. In fact, what we know is that most ordinary business owners and managers, when they're picking an MSP, and they don't even know what the letters MSP stand for.
That's the funny part.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. When they're picking an MSP, they don't really know what they don't know about marketing. So they don't know what an MSP is. They don't know how to pick one. And there's a huge amount of fear, because actually, if you go in and screw up their technology, then you have destroyed their business. This is huge. This is bigger than them switching CPA or accountant. This is bigger than them switching lawyer. This is massive. And all of these things, they slow everything down. The flip side of these, by the way, is that you benefit from all these things from your retention. So the reason why clients stay with you for 10 years is partly because you service them well, but it's also partly because it's scary for them to go off somewhere new. So as much as you can curse these problems, believe me, they are helping to pay your mortgage as well. So if we go back to that strategy, that 3-step strategy, which is the world's simplest marketing strategy. It's designed for any MSP to be able to implement in 1 hour a day. And there's many more powerful strategies you could use, but that's the one that most MSPs will use. First step then, build multiple audiences. There are 2 basic audiences to get started with. The first of them is your LinkedIn connections. Whether you love LinkedIn or hate it, wipe those emotions out of your brain. LinkedIn today is the number 1 social media platform for MSPs. End of. There is no debate about it. Facebook has a value. Instagram can have a value. TikTok does not have a value. Snapchat does not have a value. Be Real does not have a value. Some of these social media platforms will come and go over the years, but as we are today, and it will be the same for next year and the year after, at least, LinkedIn is where people who are in business go to sell and go and learn about things. Now, even though the vast majority of people are on LinkedIn to get a job or to sell their own stuff, it's still a great way of reaching people. And there are so many tools. Microsoft has done such a good job turning LinkedIn from an okay social network into the business social network. So LinkedIn is your first audience. That means more connections. It means building your LinkedIn newsletters up. It means just connecting with as many people as you can who you would like to do business with on LinkedIn. Your other audience that you'll probably build is your email database. So most MSPs don't really have an email database. They have a list of clients, but they don't have a uniform, well-collected, well-ordered list of prospects. So everyone who they've ever spoken to on the phone or met at a networking meeting, or anyone who's ever engaged in any way. And actually, when you go looking for all that data, there'll be a couple of hundred prospects hidden in your email or hidden on bits of pads or notes somewhere. gather all of that data together, pick a CRM, just go for MailChimp. It's the perfect one to get started on. Pop that data in there, and suddenly you have an email database. So those are the two audiences that most MSPs should get started with. The next step of that strategy is then to build a relationship with that audience. Now, here is where we come into the kind of the content stuff. So we're talking here about putting a blog onto your website, about putting social media content out every day, about sending an educational email to your prospects once a week, about getting a printed thing, like something, there's a power of having something printed and getting it into someone's hands, because it actually real stuff has 10 times the impact of digital stuff. So this is where you put in place the system, Ian. And the system that you put in place sees you putting out educational content to warm up your prospects. This system never ends. Literally never ends. I'll tell you when this system ends. This system ends the day that you die, or the day that you sell your business, whichever of those comes first.
Going to say that.
I know. Because the prospects that you are going to talk to in a year's time are today reading your printed newsletter. Yeah. They're connected to you on LinkedIn. They're getting your messages. Now, you cannot overwhelm people with content, because there is already too much content out there. We are at peak content, and yet was it something like in 24 hours today, you and I get exposed to more content than the average human being in the 17th century would have been exposed to in their lifetime. So there's an amazing amount of content, but it's still okay to add more to it, because all we're looking to do here is to build a small relationship. On the day that they are absolutely ready to switch to another MSP, the day that they are like, right, I cannot cope with our current IT people anymore, that's the day we want them to say, who's that guy that I'm connected with on LinkedIn who writes interesting things? Or where's that newsletter? Oh, is that newsletter? And that's the day. All the years of work before that day has paid off. So just to recap, and I'm nearly done, Ian, just to recap,
cool.
We're talking about building multiple audiences. Then we're talking about building a relationship with them. Then the final step, and this is the one that most MSPs skip, which is a shame, because this is the cash machine. This is the ATM step. It's commercializing the relationship. Commercializing the relationship is a whole step away from all of that marketing, that kind of fluffy marketing stuff we've been talking about. Now we're getting into hardcore sales. You need someone to pick up the phone and call your audiences for you. This is not cold calling. Cold calling is just calling data and having people swear at you and put the phone down. This is warm calling. And in fact, we're not even trying to sell over the phone. We're going to ring people that you're connected to on LinkedIn. We're going to ring people who are in your email database or other audiences that you've got. And you're going to get someone, and do you know, this is a great job for a back-to-work mom, working 2 to 3 hours a day, 2 to 3 days a week. She's going to pick up the phone and call these people, and she might have to dial 10 or 20 people to get through to a decision maker. But her primary goal is to then book them a 15-minute video call with you. So she doesn't need to know much about technology. She doesn't need to know much about your business. What you want is you want one of those nice, warm, chatty people. And that's why I think a back-to-work mom is brilliant. You can get someone who's got an incredibly, insanely high skill set for, sort of cents on the dollar, because their children are at school. They've only got a couple of hours a day to work, and they want to do interesting work. So they're literally hammering the phones on your behalf, building a relationship on your behalf, trying to find the exact moment, trying to get the timing right of the point at which the prospect is fed up with their incumbent, and then their job is to book a 15-minute video call with you. And then you, as the MSP owner, you do the rest of the magic. And to be honest, it's easy from here. Every MSP I've ever met says to me, if you could get me more people, more appointments, and a 15-minute video call is that starter appointment, you get me more of those, and I will convert most of them into clients. And that, Ian, that's it. If you were to do nothing else but implement those 3 steps that we just talked about there, you can stop. That is a perfectly good, and in fact, an incredibly good MSP marketing system.
Fantastic. Thanks, Paul. You can go now. Right. No, that's brilliant. And do you know what? I've heard you talk about this 3-step process for 2 or 3 years now, and the reason that I've heard it is because it just works. Look, welcome to the webinar, Ben Wortley. Ben is an MSP up in Norfolk in the UK, so a lot worse weather, maybe not as bad as the snow we were talking about earlier on. Ben, do you just want to introduce yourself just quickly so people know who you are, what you do, and who you help?
Yeah, of course. It's a bit like Cilla Black, isn't it?
It is, isn't it? Yeah,
so
you don't get
my
any presents though.
So my name's Ben. I'm the director of Beacon IT. Yes, we're based in Norfolk. We are an MSP, and we are supporting clients from Norfolk through to Surrey. And we offer a wide range of services, IT support being the core of our business. But we offer a wide range of services to be a single point of contact for busy businesses.
Fantastic. And the reason Ben's on the call today is because we're going to, Ben is, I believe, has been working with Paul for a little while. So we're now going to test this out. Does this actually work? What has worked? So depending on how much money I paid you before the show, Ben, depends on how much of a car crash this next bit is going to be. Let's be serious about this. Building multiple audiences, building the relationships. I'm massive on the relationships thing about educating. No one buys tech. It's all about the education, and then commercializing. And I'm going to have a little chat with you about each of those areas. And then I'm going to come back to Paul and sort of say to Paul, yeah, but what if people don't have access to someone on the phone? What else can they do to get people to book a call and stuff like that? So that's what I'd like to try and explore a little bit later. What success, Ben, have you had? When you first, thought, do you know what? I need to do some of this marketing stuff. This is the only way I'm going to take me from where I am today to where I want to be. This whole new audience thing, the LinkedIn, the email list. Where did you start with that? What successes did you have, or what are the revelations that if you went back a few years, you go, God, I should have done that like 5 years ago. Well, if these platforms were around. What in that first bit about building that audience, what does success look like to you in that area?
Yeah, of course, that's a really good question. I think the first thing, and it sort of touches on one of the points you're making there, but is to get out there and do it. The longer you leave it, when you do have it, when you do it and follow this process, you will realize and have a bit of a eureka moment that actually, yes, we should have done this earlier. Sorry, assuming that your business was in a position where you could actually handle that growth and deliver on the commitment that you're making. In the first episode in this series, Stuart talked about that and how you've got to have something that's scalable, and I think that's definitely the thing. So make sure you've got that first of all. Then it's about getting your list together for definite, and your audiences, and working out maybe a particular vertical or niche that works for you, and then approaching that. I mean, in terms of specific successes we've had from that, we've got a sister company who's more in the security sector, and we from a small acorn, which was an alarm system, grew a very sizable IT support contract, and that was through we'd made this initial contact, put them onto a mailing list. We'd started from the IT point of view, from the MSP point of view, making contact with people, and this particular client or prospective client at that time, with a view to being able to offer them more of the services that we offer, and that really did work. Got the call with them. Actually, that first call we managed to get in person, and that worked really well. And from that has grown a long-standing relationship, and a client that is worth a lot of money to any business. And we have a really good relationship with them. It's really fruitful.
And with those calls, it's worthwhile noting at this point that the first call you'll ever make, whether you make it or where someone else makes it, it's going to be an absolute car crash. It really is. But no one's going to die. Okay, that's the most important thing. And you're right. As long as what you do is you kind of take the script, work out what you want to talk about. You stay on script, which means that you'll be more confident and you'll be more structured. And then you just adjust that script as time goes on. With any qualification call, because if you don't script it, you're just going to blag it. And then if something really good happens, you'll be so excited about it, and then a couple of weeks later you'll go back and go, what did we do again? I can't remember what that process was, because this is just a process, and you follow the process and it just works. So that's the key thing. Brilliant. Great. So we've got the audience sorted, building these relationships. So now, constant rant for many of us in this space is don't sell the tech, sell the business outcome. Why do I care about you? Why do I care? And they don't care about Office 365, but they would like their teams to work a bit more seamlessly together and collaborate and things like that. How did you approach the whole content thing? Because this can just be an absolute brain fog for many MSPs, can't it? It's like, what? I've got to write a blog. what the hell am I going to write a blog about? How do I write a blog? How did you approach the whole beginning of the content thing?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. So in terms of our approach, I did actually employ someone who started on a part-time basis of 2 days a week. And she is now working, almost full-time every week for us.
Brilliant.
That was the first step, really, delegating that because I didn't have the time to do it. The second thing, in terms of the content specifically, Paul and his team offer a massive array of content, and it's good stuff, and
he's done the pitch, by the way.
Yeah, it's often topical.
I can get another one in if you like.
Yeah, it's often topical and really on point. So therefore, the challenge is picking what we think is maybe poignant to our audience and our prospective clients. So, and it's not necessarily the same for everybody. So within the lists of clients that we've got, we haven't necessarily taken the same approach with all of them. So some content we maybe would send to one, and some other content we'd send to another, maybe depending on the industry that they're in, and maybe some of the challenges that they're particularly faced within their industry. So it's trying to understand them before we're even in there. So it's almost like classifying that and then tailoring the content that we send and the activity that we do sort of to that, really.
And it's as simple as that. Many of our clients do work with Paul and his content, and it's great because it's it needs to be wide for the whole market. But the people who have the biggest success is when they take the blog or the guide or the PDF or whatever it is, and they just tweak it and just change a few words, change a few images, make it important to the people. Which is why we talk about the Growth Hub an awful lot about really getting to know your client. It doesn't matter whether they're in a geographical area, whether they're in a business sector, whether it's a kind of like certain size of businesses, but knowing what their problems are and how you're going to solve them is kind of really key. That's great to hear there, Ben. Now let's talk a bit about this commercializing the relationship. So we've educated people, we've got them in the list, they kind of know who they are, and as Paul said, there's a bit of a funny thing that goes on next, because either you're going to get someone who's like really hacked off with their MSP and they're going to go, I need to move because these guys are useless, or they're going to be another business that's going to be who hasn't got an MSP, hasn't got IT support, but knows that growth without cyber, without understanding their cyber security, score, as it would be, they need someone. Do you know what I think we need? Have you got anyone who does your IT? Yeah, so and so, right? So you've got uneducated people, in inverted commas, who haven't used IT support before. Do you differentiate that between what does your next step, if you don't mind sharing us with, how does the next, when someone puts their hand up and says, yes, let's have a call, do they book it themselves? Do you have someone to book it for you? Do they download a lead magnet? Do they, what do they do, Ben? What's your go-to strategy?
The answer is any of that.
Great, well done.
It's having the multiple channels available,
right,
so that they can do it however they want to. They could just pick up the phone and ring the landline number and say, we've seen, we've received some of your marketing, and
right,
we'd like to call. They can obviously go on and book an appointment from online from the diary, and that will book a 15-minute call with me. There's all of those approaches, and I think it's kind of important to be able to offer that, to make it as accessible and convenient. We're removing as many barriers as possible, keep the door widely open, really.
And keeping people on their channel as well is another thing that we try. If you're messaging someone on LinkedIn, don't all of a sudden on the second message start emailing them. Keep it on LinkedIn, because that's where they know, and that's where you are, and the likewise. Paul, you talked about having somebody early on, to get on the phone and just get hammering away at the phone to make those phone calls. What else, if an MSP hasn't got access to that sort of person, or even know how to be, or even know how to start to get someone, because it's like, there could be someone there and going, I don't know what you're going to say. How are we going to do that? So it's kind of like the bit of how would you get started with that? But if you didn't have access to that, what else would you suggest would be that next phase of trying to get them engaged and trying to get them into that conversation?
It's an interesting question, and the best way to get them engaged is get them on the phone. And I know it's an old-fashioned thing. I could give you 10 different options, but what I prefer to talk about is what works best. Yeah, it's like you were talking about, taking on a client and you're their first IT company. you don't want those people. You don't want them as clients. I mean, you don't get me wrong. Someone's got to take them on and be their first IT company, but it shouldn't be you. In the same way that it's a lot of work to educate someone how to be a good client. Wouldn't it be easier to steal a client from another MSP and just tweak their expectations and tweak the customer service levels? That would always be easier and more profitable. It's the same as, we and Ben knows who I'm talking about. I work with an MSP who's only a couple of years into his journey, but he's sticking to his stack. So when you become a client of his MSP, whatever Wi-Fi box you've got, that comes out, his Wi-Fi box goes in.
Yeah.
If you want on-prem servers, you can't work with him. And so he 100% he's every single one of his clients is on exactly the same setup. Now he can do that because he's only 2 years odd into his journey. But what that's allowed him to do is design from scratch a more profitable MSP, because him and his techs now only have to support one setup. They don't have to worry about, a bit of on-prem this, bit of cloud that. They support one setup. And just this week he was wavering around, should I take on this new client that they're outside of our normal setup? And the answer is no. So if you want to move people forward, you have to get someone to pick up the phone. Now, 99.978% of MSPs should not do this themselves. In fact, there are only 2 human beings I've ever met who enjoy picking up the phone and calling people, and they're not normal people. And sorry, Kevin and Auntie, I do mean you. The average MSP hates picking up the phone, unless it's for a technical reason, but hates picking up the phone, pressing the buttons, that sinking feeling when someone answers the phone. No, don't do it. Why would you put yourself through that? I don't do that. Ian, I'm sure you don't do that. Ben, I know that you don't do that. There are people out there who their idea of fun is calling other people. That's why we say a back to work mum. Back to work mums tick all the boxes. They're experienced, they're mature, they're focused because they've got to get done by a certain time. Often they'll bring a greater skill set than their salary reflects. How do you find someone like that? You work you could advertise, but you get all the nut jobs in your town applying for the job, and they're representing you on the phone. You don't want those people, you shake your network. Who do you know on Facebook? Who does your other half know on Facebook? Who does your other half's friends know on Facebook? One of the best things about us going into a potentially economically grim 2023 is that more and more people are looking for work. We're seeing it in the news that people are taking on extra work. This is amazing. So there's always someone out there. And I'm a bit of a hippie in this respect. I fully believe that once you decide what you need and you tell the universe, and I am going a little bit,
go a bit woo-woo. I'm cool with that. I'm good with woo-woo.
But you know what? It happens to me all the time. When I decide I need something and I fix myself, right, I need a person to do this, and they need to have this very specific skill set, and they need to be here in this area, and they need to be able to do this for this price. And I put it out there, and that might be a job advert, it might be telling my friends, it might be whatsoever, and every single time that person comes to me. And if you're committed enough to it, you will find that person. But to answer your question, you've got to hit the phones. All this digital stuff is cool, getting printed stuff into their hands is cool, but nothing, having a decent 10-minute phone call with someone is worth a year's worth of digital stuff put together.
Cool. And I totally agree but we do need, obviously some of that digital information and the leaflets and whatever it might be to get them to the point where
because of the concept, and sorry to interrupt you, because of the concept of persuasion. There's an entire book about this written by Dr. Robert Cialdini. Can't recommend it. Bit bloated, bit of a boring book, but essentially what goes before affects what comes after. So if you're ready to buy an MSP today and you've got 2 choices, or you've got the choice of Ben or Paul, you've never heard of. You've just Googled, you've come across his website, you think, he's all right, and you set up a call with Paul. Whereas Ben, you've been connected to on LinkedIn for 2 years, you've read his emails, you've had a chat with someone from his office, you've read his newsletter, he's messaged you a few times, maybe you even bumped into him at a networking event. If Paul and Ben offer what you think is the same service at roughly the same price, who are you going to choose? You're going to choose Ben because of the persuasion. So what comes before affects what goes after. So you're right, you do need all that digital stuff, but the digital stuff alone does not sell you. It does not get you new clients. Someone somewhere has got to be working it and picking up the phone.
And just on that point, just something that's just popped into the mind about the language and the messaging and the branding, and making sure that whatever happens at the beginning, if you've got a leaflet that someone lands on and they go onto that landing page, then make sure that the same message is on the landing page, and they go, oh, this is where I am. I've landed in the right place. Because only one, we've just done quite a big branding exercise here, and only one little thing that's different will turn them off. They go, oh, this isn't that land. Oh, I'm bored. I'm going to go somewhere else. And consistent message and consistent branding through the whole journey is ever so important. Ben, I'm just going to come to you now, because I want to we all know the importance of niching, whatever you want to call it, going into a vertical. Paul just said something there that I haven't really heard many people talk about before. It'd be interesting to get your view on it. People who haven't got an MSP, and I get this, the fact that you've got to educate them on what because you'll sell IT support rather than MSP, because they wouldn't know what the hell an MSP. Do you agree with that? Do you agree that you could let the people to land into a contract who haven't had an MSP harder to the people who have already experienced that type of thing? What's your view on that?
Yes, I definitely think it is more work to take on somebody who hasn't had outsourced IT before.
Yeah.
Also, it does depend. It depends on whether they've had an internal provision and whether it's a cost-cutting thing, and they're thinking, well, we'll get rid of the internal full-time staff and outsource it. You have to go into it wide open. We do network reviews before we take on any client. And it's for them and for us. We want to know what we're taking on, and ultimately, they need to understand more about where they currently sit with their IT. So it's definitely more work to take on that client. I think depending on the nature of the business, though, and you get a feel for that client, you could potentially. Yes, it's more work up front, but you could potentially land a client there for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And I know there is a natural thing with MSPs. Paul refers to it often. It's called inertia loyalty, and that definitely is a thing. But you may find a slightly more traditional company there that wouldn't want that constant disruption and change, and would stick with you. I think it's gauging their mindset and how receptive they are to listening to us as the professionals.
And again, what you've touched on there, which we will talk about in the third and final series on this, in the sales process, which is around having a proper qualification process. That means that you're looking for the no's as well as the yeses. Who's a good fit? If you've got someone there, as Ben sort of said, who hasn't had IT support, you might be able to bolt someone in, get a really nice 3-year contract with them, who's never had it, etc. But you need to kind of that's not the marketing website, not the marketing webinar. It's all about the sales and having that proper sales process, which it sounds like we've got there, Ben. So that's absolutely fantastic. Okay, what we're going to do now, just mindful of time, I'm going to come back to the guys in a moment, because I'm going to ask them both what their 3 top tips are. What are the top tips, Paul, for MSPs to do, and Ben, whether you want to share what you're doing or whether you want to share what people should be doing to make 2023 in this recession their best year yet for marketing activity. But this webinar would not be made possible without the great guys at SuperOps Serum, and we've just put a poll up to see if you'd like to learn more about SuperOps and the amazing products and services and solutions that these guys provide. Then you can quite easily just hit the poll on that we've just put it up here, and the guys will be in contact, and very worthwhile having a chat with them, finding out what they're doing. Very fast-paced business, moving forward month by month. We saw them at CompTIA last month, which is where I got this swanky t-shirt from. Paul didn't go to CompTIA, which is why he hasn't got a t-shirt. And if you come on the next one, there'll be a different type of t-shirt. And he's very, 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 very sad about that, as you can see. So there we go. Right. Let's have a little look there. So what we're going to do now, we're just going to run up to the top tips for making marketing in your MSP in 2023, absolutely key. And then we're going to come to any questions, if anybody's got any questions whatsoever. So you can drop those into the chat right now, and I'll just pop back to them in a moment. But Paul, what is it? Are you still thinking? I bet you're not.
Yeah, I was. I was trying to get it down to 3 is actually quite hard.
Trying to get it down to 3. I was going to try and get you down to a minute time, but the sun's going down over here anyway. Paul, cutting to the chase. All the not that we've got the waffle in the chat, but all the noise I think that's in the channel about, oh, you should do this, you should get an apprentice, you should get a marketing person. No, you should get an agency, you should do all this, you should do all that. If you're thinking that you're struggling with marketing, then guess what? You probably answered your own question. What is it that MSPs, can be doing with the next year ahead and preparing for the next few weeks so they can really hit the ground running in January with their marketing? Go.
So I think the answer to that is doing, something is better than nothing. And
simple as that.
It's simple as that. So do you remember a few years ago on YouTube, there was the actor Shia LaBeouf, who was the guy from Transformers, and he did this weird video where he was kind of gurning and saying like, just do it. It's that. I rediscovered that video recently and I've fallen in love with it. Just do it. If you think you should be on LinkedIn, just do it. If you think you should do this, just do. I think most MSPs constantly overthinking it, and it doesn't help that there's so many things you could do. As I said earlier, my mission and my goal is to drill it down into a tiny number of things that do make the biggest difference, but don't overthink it. I think that the thing that you can do as an MSP that will really genuinely transform your business next year is dedicating a minimum of 60 minutes a day working on your business, not fiddling with your stack, not doing another integration or automation. 60 minutes a day on your marketing, on your sales. And if you could do that 5 days a week for the next 52 weeks, then as you can imagine, that in itself is going to have a dramatic difference on the business.
Absolutely. That's brilliant, Paul. And it is so simple. How do you eat an elephant? Bite-sized chunks. How do you get overwhelmed? Listen to everything that's going on and try and do it all not very well. It's just keep it simple. And to add to that, run yourself on a 90-day plan. What do I want to achieve in 90 days? What does success look like? Roll it back 60-30 weekly. What am I going to do? It's kind of some of the fundamentals we talk about here. So coming to Ben now for some of the final words. Again, Ben, considering the guys on the call today, MSPs from all over the world, try not to repeat, but what Paul said. What are some of the things that if you had a pill that you could issue an MSP marketing pill? Don't think about it, Paul. That'll be out by the end of next week for them to think about things in a different way and change their mindset. What would some of those be that would really helped you over the last couple of years?
I definitely think create a realistic plan. Plan ahead. Don't sit here this week thinking about planning this week, next week's content. You need to be a minimum of a month ahead. That will make a massive difference to actually getting it done, so that when you get that emergency call come in that something's happened and you've had to get involved in, and so the marketing's gone by the wayside, it stops all of that because you've actually planned in advance. So definitely plan ahead. Have a realistic plan. Does touch on what Paul said, something is better than nothing. So have a realistic plan, being consistent, and making sure that you are ready to capitalize on those opportunities when they come. It is a numbers game. Make sure you are ready to capitalize and react to when those opportunities present themselves, and they will.
And get ready for it. I'm just gonna chuck one more question in because I think this is important, and it's I know we're going to go a couple of minutes over time, but it is important. Content ideas. How do you get content ideas, Ben? Where on earth? You talked about a monthly marketing plan. Some of the guys on the call might be going, monthly marketing plan? I don't even know what the hell to write one blog about, let alone 30 blogs or whatever it is. How do you come up with ideas, and what's the best way for you to come up with ideas to put into your content?
Actually, what we do as part of our company meeting is we have a session. A part of the session is actually devoted to looking at ideas for content. So we're getting everyone involved, from say me sitting at the top to engineers and people within the whole hierarchy of the company, and taking their ideas on stuff that we're doing. It could be from things of conversations they've had. We actually have a dedicated channel on Teams where we can also dump those ideas in, so they don't have to wait for the meeting. Images from installations that we've done, all of that sort of stuff. So that is a dedicated channel, and that was our marketeer's idea, and we implemented that, and that works really well. So we've almost got a bank of stuff that we can pull from, and ideas that we can either nurture or dismiss.
Brilliant. Absolutely love it. I couldn't have suggested anything better myself, but it's great to hear come from an MSP to say this is what we're actually doing, rather than someone sitting there going, you should do this, because that is where, because the language and the problems and the things you're solving are what some of your prospects are, and you just need them to go, that's me. I need that. Paul, looks like you were going to add to that.
No, Ben's doing exactly the right thing to do, which is basically listen to your clients, listen to your prospects. There is an unlimited amount of content ideas from them.
Fantastic. Well, look, guys, we're going to wrap up now. It's been an absolute blast. Thank you ever so much for your consider your contribution. I'm just trying to do two things at once, and I can't do that because I'm a bloke trying to read to see if there's any questions as well as close a webinar down. So I'm just going to do one thing. Have a quick look and see if there's nothing on there. There's no questions on the webinar chat, which is absolutely fine. I've now blocked the whole screen. So it's just really for me to say thanks ever so much to the guys at Superstocks. Thank you, Paul, for as always your amazing knowledge around marketing, and reach out to Paul. He's given you all his links and everything, and all his freebies and everything like that. Thank you, Ben, for your time this afternoon. Really appreciate the insights. It's been a massive help. It's really important for people like myself and Paul to have people who are in the industry and doing what we're doing and applying it and getting those great results. And if anybody wants to know how to get your MSP to 1 million, or if you're already there, get it to 5, then just flick me over on LinkedIn and we'll help you out from there. Apart from that, hope you're all well. Hope you all keep well. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day. And we look forward to catching up with you on webinar 3, when we're going to be talking about increasing your sales and smashing those targets in 2023. Thanks, guys. I'll see you soon. Take care.
All the
Bye
best.
now.